From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log. First of all, quick correction from last week on the Supreme Court decision regarding abortion. That case came out of Idaho, not Utah, as I said. So my apologies to the good people of Idaho. I hate when people do that to Wisconsin. It happens often that Wisconsin will be misidentified as usually either Minnesota or Michigan. People from the East, people from the West don't really know their geography in the Midwest. And as a Wisconsinite, I'm offended by that. So I'm not sure of my geography out there. I get Idaho and Utah mixed up, so I do it too. So apologies. All right. Today we got to talk about the presidential election. I don't like to necessarily just jump on the bandwagon that everybody's talking about, but this is way too big. We got to talk about the debate and its aftermath. So we'll talk about that. And first, a quick mention. Of course, I'm sure you know by now, the Supreme Court has granted immunity to the president, and specifically to the Orange Menace, because he brought the case arguing that he should be immune from his criminal trial regarding January 6th. And of course, it was ridiculous and it was laughed out of lower courts, but this radical right-wing Supreme Court decided not only to take the case, but then to delay the decision, knowingly letting him off the hook for the Jack Smith January 6th trial, and then came back with a verdict that gave the Orange Menace even more than he asked for. So, according to the Supreme Court, yes, the president has sweeping immunity. What was the word commentators using? Sweeping and, the word the court used was assumed. You know, you assume a person is innocent until proven guilty, right? Well, now your assumption has to be if he's a president, you have to assume that presidential immunity applies to whatever he's being charged with. So, of course, this applies to all presidents here and going forward, including this current sitting president. But it only really applies if the president plans to commit crimes, which the Orange Menace has done, and he's been indicted by juries of his peers. And not only does this put the Georgia case in jeopardy, it puts the Jack Smith case in jeopardy, it even puts the case in which he's already been convicted. They've now delayed the sentencing until they look at how this SCOTUS ruling of immunity applies to that case. So they're just handing him ornaments for his Christmas tree. And the big star on top of the Christmas tree they gave him that he didn't even ask for is motive. You can't even ask or investigate motive if any criminal allegations are brought. So say you're trying to get an indictment, or maybe you've got an indictment and you're at trial. The prosecutor can no longer include motive as part of their case. This is something the Supreme Court just invented out of thin air and handed it to the Orange Menace. Like, here you go. Here's a little extra for you. So the whole case is insane. The whole decision is insane. Nowhere in the Constitution, anywhere in federal law can you find anything that gives the president immunity, whether official or private acts. It's nowhere to be found. I challenge you to find it anywhere in the Constitution or in law. It doesn't exist. They just made it up. A commentator noted that this is the American version of the 1933 Enabling Act, which passed in Germany. 1933 gave the chancellor power to govern without consent of the parliament, making the parliament just a rubber stamp. And that was the beginning of the end there for the Germans. So a rubber stamp parliament, a rubber stamp legislature, that's exactly what MAGA wants. In fact, it's exactly what MAGA has right now, at least in the House. The Democrats still control the Senate and currently the White House for a little while yet. But that's exactly what they want. The so-called unitary executive theory. You've heard of this, right? The unitary executive theory? A political theory that says the president really Of the three branches, the president is supreme and has most or all of the power without checks. It's part of Project 2025, which has lots of other horrible things in it. Yeah, Google both of those up. Look them up. Look them up. I mean, if you had middle school civics, I haven't been in school for a long time. Do they still have civics in middle school? Where you learn the basics? The three branches, the legislative branch passes the laws, executive branch executes the laws, the judicial branch interprets and enforces the laws, with each having checks on the others. Yeah, pretty good system. Not bad. But that's all out the window now. So we live in a very different country than we did just a few days ago. And this decision now makes the 2024 election even more important than it was. And it was already pretty damn important. And this just notches it up. So let's talk about the presidential election. Let's talk about this horrible debate and the aftermath of the debate. Let me start first by telling you I'm recording this on Wednesday afternoon. I say that because things are moving fast. And who knows what's going to happen in the next 24, 36, 48 hours. Don't know. So, Wednesday afternoon is when I'm recording this. And also, I want to make a quick little sort of disclaimer before we start. I'm going to be talking about the world we have, not the world we want. All right? And I think that's an important distinction because all of this about the debate and the election coming up and the decisions we have to make, they're all based on the world we have. A world where corporate media still treats MAGA like an actual party instead of the neo-Nazis that they are. A world where a two-party system just rules and doesn't allow for any third or alternative parties. Or parties in general shouldn't, in the world we want, parties wouldn't have all this power. You know that Republicans and Democrats are private organizations, right? They're not in the Constitution. Do a little word search. I've done this just out of curiosity. Yeah, get the Constitution up on your screen and then do a word search for Republican or Republican Party or Democratic Party. You're not going to find it because because it's not in the Constitution. The concept of parties. All these rules we have now where the majority party gets the speaker and all this party stuff and the Republican caucus and the Democratic caucus. None of that is in the Constitution. None of it. Parties basically don't exist in the Constitution. So, yeah, the world we have versus the world we want. The world we have has this very powerful presidency, and we've fetishized the presidency, meaning we've given it so much importance, not only in our government, but in our brains, in our narrative, in the way we think about the country. We've put the president in this position, both literally and figuratively, that are just so outsized when it comes to power. Power, of course, in the world we want is distributed laterally. In the anarchist world I want, and that's basically what I mean by anarchism, is lateral power. You can still be organized. You can still have vibrant democracy. But instead of this horrible hierarchy where we put the president on this huge pedestal, and even more now with this ridiculous immunity decision, we have lateral power. So that's the world we want. The rest of this episode, we're dealing with the world we have. All right. All of my disclaimers are over. Okay, the debate itself, as I'm sure you know by now, I don't know if you saw it. Oh my God, it was painful. They both just looked awful. Two candidates that nobody wanted. Immediately, right away, Joe's just looking old. Oh my God, he's showing it. We're getting the same old shallow bluster from the Orange Menace, but he looks and sounds like 20 years younger than Joe. By the time it's about a half hour in, it's just a damn bloodbath. I mean, the Orange Menace, constant lies are over the top, but they're landing like carpet bombs. So if you don't know what he's talking about, if you don't know their lies, or if you're just dumb or a doofus or ill-informed, he loves the uneducated voter, right? He says that. He's winning, hands down. By the time we're like a half hour, 35 minutes in, it's just painful to watch. Joe's got some of his talking points that are squeaking out occasionally, but absolutely no energy, no engagement, no cohesion. He just looks awful. And then he completely blew the closing statement. Joe just fell apart on the closing statement. I mean, 50 million people watching. What an opportunity. Ugh. Sad. And the Orange Menace never should have had this platform in the first place. It was crazy. I don't know why Joe and his team decided to give the Orange Menace a platform. Were they that desperate because the polls showed Joe behind? I guess so. And the media, CNN, and all the networks simulcasting it, to offer the Orange Menace that kind of platform is just inexcusable. It's criminal negligence in regard to American democracy or just decency to give the Orange Menace any kind of a platform. You don't broadcast his lies. You don't give him that kind of an opportunity. Sure, you cover him, but you put him on tape and you make damn sure that your listeners and your viewers know exactly what he is. That's not showing partisanship or favoritism. That's being a responsible journalist and a responsible American and a responsible, decent human being. So he never should have been up on that platform, ever. It shouldn't have happened. But here we are, and both candidates are historically awful for exactly opposite reasons. I mean, Joe is just old. The voters didn't want him. They didn't want him in 2020. The Democratic Party, the DNC, put their thumb on the scale. They were afraid of Bernie. They're afraid of the left, which is exactly why the right has had the ball and been gaining for the last 50 years, because the political center, the Democratic centrists, are afraid of the left. So the left has two enemies, or three enemies. They got the crazy right-wingers, they got the establishment Republicans, and the establishment Democrats. And nothing in this world would have happened over the last 50 years, or for that matter, the whole history of this country. Nothing would have happened progressively without the left. Well, let's not go down that deep hole. All right, so it was awful, and it made everybody crazy, and oops, Jesus, what are we going to do now? Well, I just want to repeat what I said last week. If Joe winds up being the nominee, which is in great question now, you still have my permission to vote for him. That's what last week's episode was all about. Because it's a team sport, and the Democrats, for all their faults, are a million times better than the MAGA. All the accomplishments that the Democrats brag about, you can't argue with. They brought us out of the COVID economy. In fact, today, we got the best economy in the world. We're leading the whole damn world. We're beating everybody. Again, the world we have, not the world we want. Because it's a capitalist exploitive economy, but it's the best. It's the best in the world. Inflation is down. Unemployment is down. We got infrastructure passed. Climate initiatives in the Inflation Reduction Act. CHIPS and Science Act. Gun legislation. Drug prices. Everything the Democrats brag about is true. If the world we have is the world you want, then the Democrats are amazing. And of course, the main reason you still have my permission to vote for Joe is because the Orange Menace is unacceptable, and we have to try to uphold whatever hope we have of having democracy in this country. So in the world we have, you completely have my permission to vote for Joe if he runs, but he shouldn't. And I took a few days to really think about how I wanted to approach this, but based on that performance and based on the analysis I've been reading since, I've come to the very strong conclusion, I don't have any doubts about it, he should step aside. Joe should step aside. I mean, they both should step aside, but I know the Orange Menace isn't going to. In fact, I've said for, I don't know, a year or more that I'd be shocked if one or both of them made it to Election Day. I thought one or both of them would be gone by now, either through illness or death or in jail or something. So I never thought that this would be the contest between the two of them. And I still don't think it should be. All right, why should Joe step aside? Well, we have eyes. We all saw what happened. No person who is capable of that debate performance has any business in the Oval Office. I mean, basically, if you're voting for Joe, if he stays on the ballot, if you're voting for Joe, you're voting for President Harris. How does he make it? How does he last? And even if he does, well, there's been some talk between, there's campaigning and then there's governing, and they're two different skill sets. Okay, I suppose so. But it's clear now that Joe can do neither, or neither if you prefer. He can't campaign. How in the hell can he run a campaign for the next 4 or 5 months? You've seen presidential campaigns, right? They're going to 3 and 4 and 5 different events in a day, and they're holding rallies, and he can't do it. There's no way he can do it. It's impossible. We all have eyes. And now, campaigning versus governing, now there's reporting because former staffers and officials are now brave enough to come out. They've been silent until now, but they're coming out and giving us the truth about how Joe is slipping and how, yeah, he's got to have those afternoon naps and how late and how it gets into the night. He's done. And sure, there are moments when he's okay, when he's lucid, when he's doing all right, but there are many more moments when he's the debate Joe Biden, when he's slipping, when he's incoherent, when he trails off, when he nods off. And apparently, there's been a straight, clear trajectory of more and more of those moments. So how in the hell is he going to make it through a campaign, let alone another 4 years of being president? This is ridiculous. There's absolutely no way. And it's been a week now. It's been a week since the debate, and we haven't seen him. He did one little teleprompter rally. If you wanted to show that that was just one bad night, then get on TV the damn next day and have interviews. You should have sat down, done some interviews, done some live events, do a press conference, do an hour-long press conference, do a 90-minute press conference, do all the Sunday shows. Did he do any of that? Did they let him? Did his staff let him? No. We haven't seen hide nor hair of Joe Biden since the debate, except for one crummy teleprompter rally and one teleprompter short statement regarding the SCOTUS decision. I guess he's going to sit down for an interview with George Snuffleupagus on Friday. We'll see how that goes. I'm sure ABC will edit that very nicely for him. I don't know. This is crazy. So, no, he should not be, he has to drop out. And the main reason is he will lose. He's going to lose the damn election. The polling is bad and getting worse. There have been a couple of quick polls since the debate, and he's dropped. How in the world do you think he's going to gain between now and then? What in your imagination could happen in the next 4 or 5 months? So he's got to go. He's Ruth Bader Biden. Hang around too long until you just die and give it to your opponent. By the way, Bill Maher claims to have invented that, and he didn't. I did. The Ruth Bader Biden quip. That's mine. Bill, that's mine. Yeah, we got Ruth Bader Biden. And shame on Jill Biden and the family. This whole thing that only Joe can decide, no, that's not true. Technically, it's true. He has all the delegates, so technically it's true. But no, pressure from everybody, from Pelosi, from Schumer, from Kamala Harris. I guess it's kind of hard for your vice president to, I'll give her a break. From people like James Clyburn. Oh, Clyburn. God dang. He's the one, is he North Carolina or South Carolina? It's like Idaho and Utah. I get them mixed up. He's the one who put Joe over the top in the 2020 primaries with his big endorsement and working the inside rooms to make sure the others dropped out because they were afraid of Bernie. So, yeah, shame on the Democrats, the leadership, and mostly shame on Jill Biden. And Joe's taking advice from Hunter? Yeah, I want to take advice from Hunter on anything. So, there you go. So, if Joe decides to bow out, here's what's going to happen. He should not crown a successor. No way. You just say, I endorse Kamala Harris. She's my vice president. So, no, that makes absolutely no sense. She has no claim. That would be just pure identity politics. It would be an insult to black women. I can't believe the commentary I'm hearing that, oh, black women will be angry. That is such an insult. No. Kamala Harris, no. She failed as a primary candidate. She's failed as vice president. Her polling numbers are horrible, her approval numbers. She hasn't proven anything. I don't know her personally, obviously. Maybe she's a fine person. But she's shown me nothing as a political person. She's shown me nothing. She was a lousy primary candidate, a lousy VP. Show me something. She's got nothing. Nobody wants Kamala Harris. And don't insult black women by saying you have to run her. Just let Democrats run. Just let them throw their hats in the ring. Whoever it is, I don't care. And then you nominate them at the convention. Fine. My personal choice, Gretchen Whitmer. I've always liked Gretchen Whitmer. Again, in the world we have versus the world we want. And then for VP, maybe Raphael Warnock. Now you're talking Michigan and Georgia, even though both of those states are, well, all the swing states are in terrible shape right now regarding the polls. But if you want to think about swing states, Michigan and Georgia. Or maybe Shapiro from Pennsylvania as VP. But you guys work it out. Now, there are lots of upsides. Is it risky? Of course it is. But it's a bigger risk letting Joe finish this thing out, because that, to me, seems like a losing bet. Okay, so here are the upsides if Joe drops. Democrats take all the oxygen. They take it all. They get all the attention in the media. Starting as soon as Joe drops. All the attention, even before the RNC, which happens in, a week and a half here, a couple weeks. And it'll last now through the election. The public will be absolutely riveted. This is going to be the greatest TV show of all time. Voters will love it. Everybody who is going to vote for Joe will vote for the eventual Democratic nominee. Find me one single voter who was going to vote for Joe, but then would decide not to vote or to vote for the Orange Menace. That voter does not exist. Every single Joe voter right now will stick. That's a guarantee. A new candidate can resurrect issues where Biden is weak. He didn't come through on voting rights. He didn't come through on police reform, things that people are very upset about. He didn't back getting rid of the filibuster. He could have been vocal about that. It's very important, the whole filibuster thing. It doesn't get a lot of attention these days, but it would just change this country if the Democrats could get the House and the Senate and do something about the filibuster. So these are all things where Biden is weak. Even inflation, though it's really not his fault. That's a joke to call inflation his fault. It's not. But even that issue wouldn't be an issue for, say, a Gretchen Whitmer or Shapiro, any governor. You can't pin inflation on a governor. Court reform, a new candidate would be free to talk about court reform. We have to have a 13-member Supreme Court. Back in 1869, when the number was set at 9, it's been 9 ever since, one of the reasons it was set at 9 was because there were 9 circuit courts. Today we have 13 circuit courts. We should have a 13-member Supreme Court. Get the Democrats majority in the Senate, get a Democratic president, boom, do it. And most of all, the issue where Biden is weak, Gaza. That's why everybody's so damn mad at him. That's why young people are mad at him, right? That's off the table now. A new candidate doesn't have Gaza hanging around their neck. A new nominee, a new candidate can talk about things that Joe can't. Can talk about immigration, the southern border. That's another thing around Joe's neck that a new candidate wouldn't have. And we'd basically have a fresh start. The future, a vision, climate change, AI, things that matter for the future. Get the Bernie Sanders talking points back on the table about corporations and healthcare and poverty. And, if it's a woman candidate right there, I hate to play identity politics, but, it's true. You got a stronger voice on abortion. So many advantages to having a new candidate. The coalition would gain in every cohort. The youth vote, the black vote, suburban swing votes, women, and especially the double haters. I repeat, the double haters, the voters who hate both candidates. They're still going to hate the Orange Menace, but now they've got a new candidate that they don't necessarily have to hate. Why would you hate Gretchen Whitmer? You might have questions, you might have doubts, but you're not going to hate her. And I don't know what the latest numbers are, but the double haters are huge. It's like half the electorate. A new candidate brings at least half of the double haters. At least half. Maybe all of them. And the anti-Orange Menace campaign still continues unabated. As I was talking about before, politics is a team sport. The Democrats can still claim, we're a team. All the accomplishments I mentioned earlier, they can still take credit for all of that. The Dems can still talk about how MAGA is a cult and authoritarian, and they can point to Project 2025, and they can vote against the Supreme Court. So many advantages. Joe, you gotta drop out for the good of the nation. The down race ballots, the way it is right now, Biden is completely dragging down Senate and House races. I'm hearing that polls consistently show that Senate and House Democrats poll like 6 to 10 points ahead of Joe. Well, a fat lot of good that does if voters don't show up to the polls. We got to learn from the rest of the world. Look what just happened in France. It's happening now as we speak. The left and the center have to come together to beat the far right, because right now, as we speak, again, I'm recording this on Wednesday afternoon, the right wing is having its way in the French elections. We'll see what happens with this runoff, but it's happening all around the world. This right-wing authoritarian fascist movement is real, and we've got a chance here in arguably the most important nation on earth to say no. And Joe Biden cannot achieve that. I've listed his accomplishments. Not great in the world we want, but fantastic in the world we have. So you can celebrate Joe. Choose a new candidate. You got a couple months to run a big old campaign. But at the convention or whatever, or before the convention, you can have a big old, thanks Joe. Give him his due. Give him credit for leading the party through all these accomplishments. And list all the accomplishments. Run on him. And thank him. But then turn your back and go run hard. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for being the bridge that you promised to be. And now we are the other side of that bridge. We are the destination. You were the bridge. Thank you. Thank you for your service. And then you got to be unapologetically left. You got to be strong. You got to talk about these issues I mentioned, like, the big ones, climate, AI, poverty, all of that. Don't fall into that old trap of having to be a centrist establishment Democrat. That gets you nowhere. And now we got a shot. We got a shot at beating the Orange Menace. And we got a shot at not only saving, literally from the brink of the abyss, the world we have, but we get a shot at moving toward the world we want. All right. That's it. Please check out Apple Podcasts or whatever your favorite platform is to find this and all the other episodes. Go to the website, charlesburcell.com. Contact me, charlesburcell@gmail.com. Follow on Facebook. Thanks to River West Radio, our terrestrial flagship station. And thanks to Peter Donalds, who wrote and performed the theme song. All right. Good luck to us all. See ya.